out in a boat strike that somehow we're the bad guy? Everybody that thinks that ought to go stand beside a grave with someone's child's being dropped into that grave. Stand there and then ask yourself that question then.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Is it possible in your mind? Is it possible in your mind, Steve, that a person could be empathetic to the plight of your family and what your sister went through, and also be concerned about the manner in which this is being prosecuted by the government? Is it absolute that you have to take one of those points or the other?
Maybe, Gary, but I want to tell you what, I guarantee you there was not one person involved in the drug trade, because I've known these characters from the younger part of my life. There's not one guy that would care two hoots about a kid being dropped into a grave. They probably said,
well, we're not talking about their perspective.
Well, yeah, we are.
No,
yeah,
no, we're not.
Yeah, we are, because we're talking about how we deal with people that do that to our people.
The question was not about their perspective. I agree with you about their perspective. I'm talking about your perspective and mine and everyone else in this room and all of America. That's a different perspective than the perspective of drug dealers.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, I'll just leave it this. People can take whatever they want to from this. I really don't care, because I've seen more than just my sister's child go into a grave. The thought that after watching young people having their lives taken from them because of this activity, that I would care about how we deal with these people. No, dude. I want to tell you what, if I would have found the guy that had done that to my sister's child, there wouldn't have been no articles of convention in how I dealt with him, Gary.
So let me
assuming that everyone on the boat's a drug dealer, basically. That's what you're assuming.
Howard, do you think, honestly, Howard, do you think that we do not have enough intelligence to see where those drugs are coming from?
Okay.
And actually,
so if we do, then how come that's not being shared with other members of Congress, like on the House Services Committee and in the Senate and with the House of Representatives? Why is it so secretive? How do we know?
Well, I don't know.
If there's cause, there's cause. But where's the proof? Where's the case being made? And where's the confidence that the people in charge are making the right decision?
Do you really think we don't have the intelligence capability to see where these things are coming and where they're going on a boat? You think?
Yeah, I don't think we have it, because you have members of the House Services Committee saying that they're shut out of the information, that they don't have the information.
Shut out
so where's the transparency, Steve? You're talking about life and death and killing people.
Oh yeah, we're talking about life and death.
That's right. And
why don't you talk about the Americans' life and death?
Without the proof, it's such a gravity of a decision. Without the right proof and the justification, there's a pretty high standard that needs to be met. And it sounds like, from what the media is reporting, that no, there isn't that transparency, there isn't that communication, there isn't that alignment. And my view is, until there is that alignment, that you've got to really be serious about taking military action, because there's not enough justification to have it done. And until there's proof, great. If those are people taking cocaine or fentanyl, great. But until that's proven, then just killing people just because you're upset about tragedy from the past, I'm sorry, that's not justification in my book.
Well, you know, Howard, if these people loading these boats with 4 and 5 and 6 engines in them, I'm sure that's your normal fishing boat, Howard. So let's set that aside. You want to.
Let's set that question aside for a moment, and let me pursue just with an analogy the question I asked you earlier. You are on a city council in your town in West Virginia, and you've told me and you've told the room that one of your responsibilities has been to oversee the police department. So if your police department got word that there was a drug house up and they're selling drugs on the streets of your town and from that house, and kids are buying those drugs and potentially dying as a result of it, would you feel comfortable with them raiding that house absent a search warrant, or would you require them to do their due diligence and gather the evidence before raiding that house?
Well, you're right. I'd require them because I couldn't operate any other way and be within the law, Gary.
Well, so
I cannot.
so the same question is raised, I think, here. The question is not, do we want to stop or don't want to stop the drug trade? The question is the military acting within the law in the manner in which they are interdicting these boats?
Well, I don't know what legal standard applies on the high seas. That's a question.
Well, we were discussing the Hague Convention 10 of 1917.
That's not a legal standard in the United States.
It is a standard for the United States. It's been established in international law ever since. And I'm sure, I wish Hansen wasn't boycotting the room. I hope he's boycotting it and he's not sick, because he hasn't been here in a while. But I'm sure he would underscore that there are rules of engagement to which the United States has agreed to adhere. And that's one of the rules of engagement that the United States, it's long established as international law and U.S. policy. So, so would you say that international law and U.S. policy ought to be ignored because of the reasons that you delineated earlier?
No, well, I'm just saying that's what it is. It's international law. It's not law that was passed by the U.S. House, went to the Senate and signed by the president. It's international law.
If we're signatory to an accord, then it has the weight of a law in the United States as well. But you can look it up, or I can look it up, or somebody who's better versed in this
you're
can
probably right,
clear this
Gary.
up for both of us.
I'm not going to argue that point. You're probably right. But I just, I've seen the damage that these people have done to my community. I've seen the damage.
I agree. I've seen the damage too. You know that I was a reporter. I was a reporter on the streets of Detroit, and I've been there. I've seen it all. I've lived through it. I know how horrific it is, and I still feel uncomfortable with what they did, especially with that one boat where they killed those guys after they had already blown the boat out of the water. So it doesn't mean that because I'm concerned about that, I'm not concerned about the drugs that are flowing into your town. Of course I am.
Yeah.
They're not mutually exclusive.
Well, I could be too emotional on this point, Gary, because I'm tied too closely with horrific results. So maybe my thinking's clouded a bit here.
And it's important for you to articulate your concerns and for us to hear that articulation. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
We'll go from Steve Wine to Steve Appel, and Brent fell off, but he came back in, so we'll go after Steve to Brent. Steve.
Gary, thank you for holding the space. Hello, everybody. Gary, I grew up on a fishing boat before I was a teenager. Again, a teenager. And I can tell you with 100% certainty that any captain of a boat, be it a 15-foot fishing boat or 1,000-foot warship, is required to help a shipwrecked crew, a drowning person, as long as it does not place their own vessel, crew, or passengers in danger. This is a legal obligation that includes rendering all practical and necessary aid, and if unable to provide the aid directly, required to call for assistance to the authorities such as the Coast Guard. This is a fact. It's undisputed. Now, under the Geneva Convention and international humanitarian law, a combatant who is incapacitated, surrenders, or otherwise unable to fight, i.e. a blown-up boat, and they're only being able to tread water because they've got shipwrecks that they're holding on to, must must be treated humanely. This includes shipwrecked, drowning enemy personnel who have the same protections as the wounded and sick. This applies on land or at sea or in any type of rescue efforts. You know, there's a huge difference, Gary, between driving on the freeway and seeing a car crash and just driving by versus if you're in a boat, again, a 20-foot fishing boat or a 1,000-foot warship, and you see people that are in the water and arguably are going to be drowned. When you're driving on the freeway, there's no obligation for you to stop and help. But if you're the captain of a ship, and by the way, again, it's the last time I'll say this, 20, 30-foot sport fishing vessel, or 1,000-foot warship, you have an obligation by law to help, at the least to call for assistance, and as long as it doesn't put you in danger, arguably to get those people out of the water. And if you've ever been the captain of a ship, or if you've ever been in the water, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That being said, the only thing that I've heard from Trump about Venezuela is fentanyl,